It's time for our weekly look at China. I'm Bill Graff, along with Amy Howe and Nan Su. We are the program China Uber Alice. Our telephone number, write it down. You might need it later on today. The telephone number is 479-1080, 479-1080. And Nan, welcome.
Oh, hi. Hi, Bill. How are you? And
hi, Amy.
Hi, Nan and Billy. How are you guys?
Terrific, terrific. Looking forward to your story today. We have quite a program. We're going to talk about, genocide.
Yes.
It still exists.
Yes, and then we're going to, Trump administration, Secretary Pompeo, the last day in his office, they issue a document and then, stating that China has been conducting genocide against the Uyghurs in the Xinjiang area. Uyghurs are the Chinese Muslims that live in the Xinjiang area in the northern part of China, while also what happened in the last day of Trump administration, the Chinese Communist regime issued a sanctions on 28 Trump administration officials.
Say that one more time.
Wow.
28.
28, including Mr. Pompeo.
Pompeo number one. Huh?
Pompeo is number one on the list.
Number one.
So China is treating the U.S. officials like war criminals. So who is right and who is wrong, we're going to find out. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the genocide. We're going to talk about why Chinese Communist regime pick up the last day of a U.S. administration to sanction 28 U.S. officials.
And we have a guest later on this hour after we talk to Amy about her story. We'll have a former foreign policy advisor for the Canadian Foreign Ministry, Gaylen will be with us. And if you want to hear a set of credentials, we'll tell you about them in a little while. But this person is well qualified to talk about this particular topic. First, however, we're going to hear from Amy Howe because Amy's story is always fascinating and always pertinent to our discussion. Amy, take it away.
Yes. Today I want to talk about a story. It's also the freedom of the religion in China and back to the Cultural Revolution and beyond. I have my best friend in elementary school schoolmate. And when we are young, you're 7 years old, basically all the entire education system and it's follow the Soviet Union. So we have about 6 years elementary school and 6 years high school. The high school, junior high 3 years and senior high 3 years. Then you can go to college. And so in the elementary school, the first 3 years, so we're about 7, 8, 9, very young. And at that time, you're not joining any political group. They also follow the Soviet Union. So when you turn 10, third grade, and you join the group, and everybody wear the red scarf. And then, after you become a member of the red scarf, and every morning they have this flag rising ceremony every morning in a school. But after you join the red scarf legal, and you had to salute to the flag. So that's like a normal thing. But my best friend and schoolmate, and her name is a little Bluey. And when we all joined the red scarf, so she's also joined. But in the morning, she's not salute. So I was curious. I asked her, I said, how can you not salute? Then you're going to get in trouble. The teacher and maybe principal going to call you into the office to question you. And what's the reason? And she told me, she's very honest person, chubby face, and she's so nice to everybody, and so honest. She never would tell any lie. So she just tell me straight. She said that I'm a Christian, and I don't. They told me, you cannot salute because God is the only one I can salute. That's what she said, and nothing. The time, of course, we are young and we are naive. We not feel anything. So she just told me like that. So not too long, couple times, because we had so many people in the morning. We all salute outside, so they didn't call her. And after a couple of days, and they caught her, and so they immediately took her to the principal's office and questioned her and actually forced her to salute. And she refused. So what happened is I didn't know anything before, I didn't know anything about her family background. And because I think later she told me her father was in jail, and mother is a high school teacher, musical teacher. And why her father's in jail? He says anti-revolutionary. I said, well, what about it? And she told me because her father owned a chemical factory, and also their whole family is a Catholic. So they go to Catholic school, church every week, every Sunday, and they was very religious, the entire family. And then now that I had to tell you something about the background about this religion in China. So there is a very famous bishop in Shanghai, and he was appointed by the Pope in 1950. So 1950, that time, communists already took over, but just start. So they took away people's possession, like private property or factory or whatever it is. But it's very difficult to take away things intangible like their religion. So in Shanghai, the city I was born, since the Opium War, 1840, and because China, Qing Dynasty is a defeated country, so they signed a treaty with 8 different countries. So they all have their own section in Shanghai. So they have a different church, and they even have some mosque too, Muslim too, because that was before the Opium War. That was, I think, during the Ottoman Empire, and some Muslim from go to the west of China, then eventually move to Shanghai. So they have this Muslim living in Shanghai, so they have their own mosque. And then my family is kind of interesting. My father was adopted by Muslim family, and but he's never practiced Islamic. But when my grandmother died, and so they had to have a ceremony in the mosque, and also had to have a priest coming to home to pray for 7 days or something like that. And then my mother's side, my mother's father, the family, they are Christians. And my grandfather was, when he was young, go to the missionary school. So basically his English is better than Chinese. So absolutely is a Christian background. But then my father always said that let us kids choose whatever we want it to be. And since my grandmother died, the priest coming to home, and so we were, we are the kids. We basically very naive, very honest. We saw something and we think they are kind of phony, and then they are very mean to the kids. So we don't like that. So of course we not want to go to mosque. We don't want to be a Muslim. And then just opposite, we like to go with my mother because in the church they sing and especially and they celebrate the holiday or something, and the beautiful music, organs. We love it, and also things like more loving and welcome the kids. So we like to go there. But at that time, 1949, and the communists took over, and nobody can practice it, they cannot take away because that thing that what you believe in your mind, And so gradually they wanted to infiltrate, and they sent their undercover, the Communist Party member, to those church, and they organized an organization called the Patriotic Catholic Association or something to against the influence from Rome, Vatican. And so that time, since 1955, and they arrested about 180 the priests, and the biggest one that in the head of this they call anti-communist group. The head of that is the bishop of the Shanghai, and he spent about 30 years in jail in China. Probably died 2000, I think 88 or something. Finally managed out to go to America. I think he died in Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut. And but meanwhile, they arrested about 200 people, all those head of a different church. And because he told those people, he said that don't compromise, and don't surrender, and don't betray. But the result of that, so he and the other people all go to jail. Some are executed, and that my the schoolmate, little Bluey, her name is not Bluey; it's a very Catholic name, but they don't let her to have that name, so she had to change it to Little Blue or something like that. And her father was financially supporting, donated a lot of money to the Catholic Church. And so they arrested him, and put him in jail, eventually executed him because he followed the cardinal, the bishop, is don't surrender and don't betray. And then interesting enough is my next door neighbor, is old guy, he also is another church nearby my house, and he's the head of that church. And I didn't know what's happening, but he survived. And one day my little Bluey came in, he said, I know that guy. So I said, how do you know? So she told me, and actually that guy was sold her father and the other people out and confessed. And so, of course, for his own survival, And but I didn't know. So he still remained in the church. So basically, that time they still have a church. You still can go to a worship God, but basically entirely is controlled by Communist Party. So this little Bluey was a very sad story. And after elementary school, I think 1966. So we are the first year of the high school, junior high school, and Cultural Revolution happened. And she went to another high school because we live in the same area. And eventually, I was looking for her, especially before I leaving for the labor camp. I want to talk to her. And then finally I got her to the place that she used to live. And then her neighbor told me, and she committed suicide. I was shocked because normally...
You mean the little Blue?
Little Blue, yeah. normally, she's very happy, little chubby faced little girl, very talented. That she can make those use a door to make a toy, very artistic. And because he said that day, 1966, I think, summer in September or something, and the red guy and killed and beat her mother to death. And at that time, when if they announce you is an anti-revolutionary or something, and no funeral house will collect you, coming to pick your body, and so she had to borrow, those like a rickshaw kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know what to say in English because I don't see anything, this kind of thing in here. So carry stuff, so she had to borrow that to carry her mother's body out of the school, and then go to to criminal. And then that's how, also you're not allowed to bury, even my grandmother's, buried in this Muslim cemetery. They took all the bones out and told us to collect it, get a bag or something, and said, you have this any religion in your, the head in your grave, and say what kind of religion, and those people all had to be figured out, and so things like that. And so she carried her mother to the crematory, and then she come back, and her neighbor said she just hang herself.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we take freedom of religion, for example, here in the United States without question. I can't imagine not being able to have a ceremony or bury your loved ones or any of that.
So it's every time I always think about her, because she's the only one not salute to the flag, and I always remember that.
So her whole family died during the Cultural Revolution.
Yeah.
Just because of they believe in Catholic Church. Oh,
because
Wow.
So that's the story.
Well, we're going to talk about throughout our program today. We're going to talk about this repression of folks like the Uyghurs has not stopped.
Yep. Thank you, Amy. First of all, that's a very touching story. There's a lot of those kind of stories. This is just another one. I think even for Chinese, as someone who came to United States from China, I heard a lot of this kind of story before. Still, I feel so sad when I heard your story today.
Well, Amy's stories, because they're firsthand and because she knows personally about the facts, they make them more real for me, because I can't, until I heard these stories from Amy, I can't even imagine what it's like to live like that.
Yep. Well, unfortunately, this kind of story is still happening every day in China, especially in the
never change.
In the Uyghur area, that's in northern part of China, Xinjiang province. Xinjiang in Chinese meaning new territory.
New territory.
In Xinjiang area to
in the
Uyghurs.
west is the Gobi Desert. Over there.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it is northern China.
It's northern part of China, and that's why that State Department issued a statement yesterday calling China to stop the crime against humanity, to stop the genocide practice over there. And today we're going to have our special guest. Hey, Bill. We're going to have. It looks like we're calling our special guest today. Our special guest today, her name is Gaylen Ford. She was the former foreign policy advisor at the Canadian Foreign Ministry, and very impressively, She is also a documentary filmmaker and also holds a master's degree in international human rights law from Oxford University, England. Very impressive.
We have her on the line.
That's great. It's really our pleasure to have Gaylen Ford joining us today. Hey, Gaylen, how are you? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
Just fine.
Just fine. Let me introduce, first of all, Gaylen. I have also two co-hosts here. One is Billy. Billy, why don't you say hello?
Very good to meet you, and I was looking at your credentials. Most impressive. I can't wait to hear what you have to say today.
Okay. Thank you for having me on the show.
All right, good, Gaylen. We have also another co-host, Amy Hao. She's Chinese from mainland China.
Oh, wonderful.
Hi, Gaylen. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Pretty good. It's an honor to have you in our program.
Well, thank you. It's an important topic that we're discussing today.
So, Gaylen, I know genocide, this is a definition for a term that a lot of people do not understand. I think I was told that this is a very technical term. You need to in compliance of a lot of limitations before you can actually classify a genocide. Would you explain a little bit about this terminology to our audience?
Sure. So the concept of genocide, of course, arose as a response to the Holocaust in World War II. And as defined by Raphael Lemkin, who was one of the first scholars who attempted to define the term and codify it, it represented a coordinated plan aiming at the destruction of the essential foundations of life for particular groups. And this would be national, ethnic, religious, or racial groups. And the aim is to annihilate the groups themselves. So that would include, according to Lemkin's definition, the disintegration of the political and social institutions of a culture, language, national identity, religion, the economic existence of the group, and the destruction of their personal security, health, liberty, dignity, and so on. But as it was codified in international law in the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, which was adopted in 1948, it has a little bit more of a narrow definition. So sometimes you hear people talking about cultural genocide, where that sort of fits the description I just gave. There's an attempt to destroy the character of a particular group. The Genocide Convention refers exclusively to what might be called physical or biological acts aimed at the destruction of particular groups. And there are 5 acts that are enumerated in the Genocide Convention. These are killing members of a group, causing serious bodily or mental harm, inflicting conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction, preventing births within a group, and forcibly transferring children from that group to another group. And these acts have to be carried out with the specific intention of destroying that national, ethnic, religious, or racial group.
Wow. That's a lot to learn. So, so Gaylen, tell us, do you think that the State Department of the United States made the right call yesterday to classify whatever the Chinese Communist regime is doing in Xinjiang area to the Uyghur group as a genocide practice?
Yeah, so on the final day of the Trump administration, the former Secretary of State issued a statement indicating that in the State Department's judgment that a genocide is occurring in China's northwestern province of Xinjiang. And the group being targeted in that instance is mostly members of the Uyghur ethnic minority who are predominantly Muslim. And for quite a long time, the Communist Party of China has embarked on what might be characterized as a cultural genocide, which is not the convention definition of a genocide, but they've tried for a long time to subjugate, to assimilate members of that minority into the dominant Han ethnic minority of China, including by sending large numbers of Han Chinese people into the region of Xinjiang and trying to sort of to eliminate the language and culture. But recently, more evidence has come out that this actually does fit the international legal definition of genocide, because you do have examples, quite a lot of examples, of attempts to prevent births within the group through forced sterilization. And that, I think, is what tipped this over the edge and is responsible for that determination, which I think is the right determination.
Okay. Now, as far as I know, there are other groups in China that also accuse the genocide practice besides the Uyghur group. They have been there a long time. Do you have any of those in your mind?
Yes, well, the charge of what people term cultural genocide could apply to a number of different groups in China, including to Tibetans. And one of the groups that I studied in the context of genocide was the persecution against the Falun Gong, or the Falun Dafa religious minority, which in the 1990s numbered somewhere in the range of 70 million people were practicing this, which is sort of a religious creed. And the Communist Party launched a campaign in 1999 with the express purpose of eradicating it. So that alone sort of meets the part of the convention definition of genocide. Was their goal was to eradicate a religious group. And they did that through mass extra-legal imprisonment. So they sent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people into re-education through labor camps, where they coercively, effectively brainwashed them. They say, the term is in Chinese is xinao, right? To wash the brain. So it's a coercive process of re-education to attempt to make them recant their religious faith. And if they refused, they would be tortured and sometimes killed. So we have there other aspects of the definition of genocide. There's killing members of the group, causing serious bodily and mental harm to members of the group, including through torture and mass incarceration.
Gaylen, can I ask you a question? Because there is now an international definition of genocide that we've been talking about on several levels, and because it is recognized that this is taking place in China, is there any international enforcement of trying to stop the genocide?
Well, that's challenging. There should be, in theory, but of course China is a member of the Security Council of the United Nations and would never assent to allowing its own government to be held accountable for these crimes. Now, there are some different countries, including the United States, have things like the Alien Tort Claims Act, which can allow foreign nationals to bring claims against foreign states for violations of international law in this way. And some people have attempted to do so in the United States. We've actually filed largely what are in effect symbolic lawsuits against Chinese government officials alleging torture and crimes against humanity and genocide. But for political reasons, those are pretty unlikely, I think, to move forward, at least in the medium term.
Amy, you have a question?
So Kelly, what about the human rights group, international human rights group? Play any role on these issues?
Well, a number of international human rights groups have spoken up in recent years, in particular about the circumstances in Xinjiang province, targeting the Uyghurs. But they don't have a great deal of influence in terms of how we engage with those countries. There are some other possible avenues for pursuing recourse, though. The United States, as well as a number of other countries, have adopted Magnitsky Acts, so they can impose sanctions on the officials who are responsible for committing genocide or torture or crimes against humanity, implement travel bans, freeze their assets, and so on. And that can serve as a deterrent against those kinds of crimes by holding individuals responsible for their actions. A number of major corporations also employ or make use of forced labor in China, including in Xinjiang province, which is a major source of cotton. So a lot of textile manufacturers source their cotton effectively from slave labor in Xinjiang. The members of the Falun Gong, of course, are also imprisoned in re-education through labor camps where they're making products for export. So cracking down on those suppliers and imposing sanctions there, and making sure that, for example, American companies are not sourcing products from forced labor. That's another way that I think Western corporations and governments can do something to deter these actions.
So
Gaylen,
do you have any number, this genocide, and how many people died already in those Uyghurs in Xinjiang?
So in Xinjiang, it does not appear. Well, I should caveat this. It's very difficult to get information out of Xinjiang province. Very difficult. Communication channels are largely shut down. So it's very hard to get information, but it doesn't seem that physically killing members of the group is the principal way that this genocide is being carried out in Xinjiang. In Xinjiang, it's mostly forced sterilizations. So a local, and you can find even government documents showing that they, for example, in a single year in the city of Hotan, they aimed to sterilize between 15 and 35% of the women in that prefecture or in that county. So through the forcible, they're being forcibly fitted with intrauterine devices to prevent pregnancy and effectively forcing them to be sterilized. So that's the principal form that this genocide is taking in Xinjiang. The other example I gave with Falun Gong, there are many instances of extrajudicial killings and deaths. The numbers range from anywhere from approximately 4,000 or 5,000 up to somewhere in the tens of thousands. But again, very difficult to get concrete information out of these out of China.
Wow, this is a fascinating and horrible subject. Only because I had no idea this was taking place. I have to ask you, Gaylen, how did you begin to study this?
Well, a long time ago, actually when I was in my teens, and I started meeting people who had fled China as refugees, who were fleeing religious persecution, and working with some of them on asylum cases, and trying to tell their stories and get attention in the West. But it's been an uphill battle. I think in many ways there are a lot of vested interests here that would rather people not know about this. There's a lot of, it's very inconvenient at a time when a lot of Western governments and corporations were trying to deepen business ties and economic ties with China. It's been quite inconvenient to face the extent of the human rights abuses there.
So, Gaylen, you mentioned because China is the current member of the UN Security Council, it's very hard for the international society to make some sort of sanction as a united effort to punish Chinese communist regime. What do you expect if a United States government makes statement that China is actually conducting genocide inside China? What kind of a possible? I mean,
what can be done?
What can be done?
That's a good question. The normal forms of recourse that would be available. So China is not a signatory to the Rome Statute, so that means that it certainly can't easily be tried in an international tribunal. As I said, there are some countries, including the United States, that have some mechanisms, sort of residual mechanisms from a couple hundred years ago that could theoretically allow them to prosecute individuals responsible for these types of crimes in the United States. But I guess at some level it comes down to political will, and that would take a tremendous amount of political will of a kind that I don't think that we have yet seen in the United States or other countries.
So basically, United States, if United States government want to punish Chinese regime, they need to build alliance with many other Western nations. Is that what it is?
Well, that would certainly help. Multilateral measures are I think, always more powerful than unilateral or bilateral, I suppose, measures. But again, I think there are probably other avenues that can be pursued that are more practicable, and that includes, as I said, the Magnitsky sanctions would seem to be the most obvious one, and a lot of countries are already talking about how they can apply this more to punish the individual perpetrators. Also, you could prevent American companies, for example, from selling surveillance technology, which a number of U.S. companies have done, and the surveillance technology has actually been used to help track and catalog members of persecuted religious and ethnic communities in China. So I think cracking down on the corporations that are in one way or another complicit, either actively or sort of passively, disrupting supply chains that make use of forced labor, and imposing targeted sanctions on some of the individuals most responsible for these crimes. These are, I think, some of the more practical deterrents that I would like to see.
Gaylen, Amy is, a firsthand. She has firsthand knowledge of how this sort of thing takes place. She has told several stories on our program, in the program's existence, about how torture and scare tactics have been perpetrated by the Chinese government. Would firsthand testimony such as Amy's be an effective way to try to stop this?
Well, it's vital. In fact, I think that a large part of the determination, when the State Department made this determination that what had happened in Xinjiang was a genocide, I think a lot of this relied on hearing firsthand testimony from people who were there. It helps that you also have government documents that are indicating the extent of the plan, but that's all very abstract until you hear about the actual impact on real flesh and blood human beings who are suffering under these policies. So I think that's a really important part of galvanizing the kind of public pressure and the political will that's necessary to try to put a stop to these abuses.
So, Amy, you have to keep telling your stories.
Yeah. I know the woman. I think she's married to a Turkish guy, and then she come back to Xinjiang to visiting her mother's sick or something. They arrested her, and just keep her in some undisclosed location. And her kids, 2 kids too, but they are the Turkish citizens, and she's not. Yeah. And so somehow, finally, she managed somebody helping her in the ground. From China escape out. So she was talking about these horrible things happen in Xinjiang. In the internet, I saw her pictures and videos and the true stories. Yeah.
Now, Gaylen, let me ask you this. You mentioned some of the United States and other Western countries' corporations. It's been helping or maybe provide equipments to facilitate this kind of a persecution in China. Would you name some of them?
Well, Cisco Systems, for example, this is an early example that I became acquainted with quite a long time ago in the early 2000s. Might have even been as early as 1999, 2000. Cisco Systems was actually trying to sell the Chinese government surveillance technology and censorship technology with the promise that it would help them to, according to one Cisco internal slideshow, help Chinese security agencies to catch Falun Gong. So they were actually advertising this as a means to aid in what I think is fairly characterized as a genocidal campaign of repression against this particular religious minority. There are other corporations. I don't want to speak out of hand, so I'm not going to name any others in the Xinjiang context. But a number of major tech giants in Silicon Valley have helped also to provide the kinds of technology that is used for facial recognition and for sort of registering and cataloging biometric data and artificial intelligence technology. So this is, in my view, it's unconscionable, and it's in many ways profoundly hypocritical for these corporations. They would never dream of doing something comparable in the United States, but I think there's a recognition that they simply won't face a significant political backlash for being complicit in these crimes in another part of the world.
Wow, I'm just completely dumbfounded that an American company would aid and abet this sort of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Gaylen, let me ask you this: even though it is currently not possible, say, for the United Nations to take any actions against the Chinese Communist regime, now is it possible, say, for any organizations or any countries to initiate some sort of a resolution inside the United Nations just for discussion purpose and to raise for the purpose of raised awareness?
Yes, there are mechanisms within the United Nations where resolutions could be raised. The Chinese Communist Party has unfortunately done a very, very good job at suppressing scrutiny within the UN framework. If you look at the current composition of the UN Human Rights Council, it's not promising. Many of the greatest human rights abusers sit on the Human Rights Council, including China. I think China actually chairs it currently. There are other processes. There's a universal periodic review process where each country every 4 years sort of opens itself up to questions about its human rights practices. But China's very good there at intimidating would-be witnesses. One witness a few years ago who intended to testify during China's universal periodic review process was killed in custody in China. So they've very effectively suppressed a lot of these mechanisms for scrutiny of their human rights record, often through campaigns of intimidation and sometimes by working with other countries with questionable human rights records to try to weaken these human rights mechanisms.
Yeah. And I think they also use their propaganda machine. They were talking about the Xinjiang province. So those people, they betray communists, undermining in China's government, and try to be independent, and with outside those Muslim group and the other country, because Xinjiang very close to the Russian and also some former Soviet Union countries, surrounded them. So they say they were with those people join and betray the country and undermining the Communist Party.
That's right. Yes, the propaganda plays a very important role. And in Xinjiang, for example, the Communist Party really took advantage of the global war on terror that began after the 9/11 attacks in 2001 to try to paint Uyghur Muslims as extremists and as potentially as terrorists. And they used this pretext to greatly ramp up the kinds of surveillance and intrusive measures and assimilationist policies in Xinjiang. So a lot of human rights abuses were carried out under the auspices of combating terrorism. And it may be true that there is a separatist movement in Xinjiang province. The name Xinjiang literally means new territory. It was not part of China prior to certainly prior to 1948. Or 49. So there is a separatist movement there. They have a distinct national culture and heritage and a distinct ethnicity. They're sort of Turkic people, not Chinese. But yes, this idea that they're combating separatism and insurrection and terrorism was used as a sort of a convenient cover for human rights abuses. And for a time, unfortunately, a lot of international organizations kind of played along with this. Yeah. So I think fortunately that seems to have changed, and I think there's now really at last some recognition of what's actually been happening there. But it's been a long time in coming.
Gaylen?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah. In 1970s, just right on the Vietnam War, I was in a labor camp in China in the Yunnan province. So they have a lot of Muslims live there. And one of the village was all Muslims. And so they have a kind of uprising movement. The reason is, Muslims, they don't eat pork. So they put the pig farms on their the village. The people with their burial, cemeteries. So that they start against them. And so the whole village, I tell you, they use the military, and the whole village disappeared. just everybody died. Doesn't matter, woman and because things happen in China, nobody can get there to get the information. I was, I just talk about a little bit because, in China you had to follow your father, not the mother, your what kind of ethnic group. So it happened to be my father was adopted by the Muslims, so the Hui nationality is not the Uyghur, but it's Hui, same as they are Muslims. So I have either in one of our canteen in the college, it's same place eating, and they all Huis. So they told me about that things happening to their relatives in that village. The whole village is gone. That's that.
Yes.
Nobody left.
It reminds me of a story I read about a decade ago when I was doing research on internal protest movements in China. And I read a story about a gentleman who said he was writing under a pseudonym, and he said he was a member of the military. And he said he became disillusioned with the Communist Party because he was ordered to basically to wipe out a village of Hui Muslims. And it wasn't clear what the time frame was, but this is the kind of thing that is almost never reported. There's extremely difficult to get access to the Xinjiang region, as it is to get access to labor camps in any other part of China. Sometimes they do these highly choreographed show tours. Well, they'll bring foreign journalists on tightly chaperoned tours, but this is, this is sort of Potemkin village things that they're doing. This is, it's not at all the reality. So it's really difficult to get information out to understand the full scope of what's actually occurring. And sometimes it happens only several years or even decades after the fact.
Well, thank you very much, Gaylen. It's been very informative. It tells us a lot about China and a lot about what's going on. And I really feel sad for those people under the religious persecution in China, including definitely Uyghur people, the Chinese Muslims. And it's been a pleasure having you in our program, and we're definitely hoping you will come back later.
Absolutely.
To tell us more about this.
We want to thank you so much for being part of the program. We are coming to the end of the first hour, and we have to take our commercial break, but we want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, and thank you,
Gaylen.
Take care. All right, we're going to take our first hour break, and then we'll come back to wrap up the first hour of China Uber Alice on KSCO.
Hey guys, this is Larry King. Are you sick and tired of prostate pills that don't work? I've got great news for you. I had prostate problems that were driving me nuts. I tried several different natural products. None of them worked. One day I heard about Prostagenics. It beat over 157 other prostate supplements in independent lab tests and was rated #1 most powerful prostate supplement in the world. So I got some Prostagenics, and boy, am I glad I did. Now my prostate troubles are a thing of the past. I sleep like a champ. I feel like I did 20 years ago. Do yourself a huge favor. Do what I did and get yourself some Prostagenics.
Prostagenics comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee, so you can order absolutely risk-free. So go online or call 800-600-2020. 800-600-2020. If you call in the next 6 minutes, you can get a free bottle with the Larry King TV special. 800-600-2020.
Pick up the phone right now.
Hi, this is Hema from the Holistic Mystic on KSCO AM 1080, and I'm so excited to tell you about a new show that I'm hosting on Friday evenings from 7 to 8 p.m. Listen in for interesting topics on all things holistic, mystical, and spiritual. Call in with your questions and request for readings. I really want to talk to you about what's holding you back in your life so that you can live your life the most holistically as possible. Remember to listen to the Holistic Mystic with Hema on KSCO Fridays at 7 p.m.
Do you think local first? If you don't, you should. Hey folks, it's Cammie Corvin, your executive producer of the Think Local First radio show. Join me each Saturday from 2 to 4 p.m. as we chat with our members and officials on local topics regarding the issues that most affect our community and local businesses. Think Local First radio show is sponsored by Heavenly Roadside Cafe, North Coast Vision, Back 9 Bar and Grill, Togo's of Capitola, Scotts Valley and Watsonville, and Seaside Auto Glass. For more information on joining Think Local First and what you can do to support your local businesses and the community, email me, cc@ksco.com. Together, we can get our businesses through these trying times. Think Local First is live on ksco.com or AM 1080 every Saturday from 2 to 4 p.m. Think Local First on KSCO.
It's Michael Harrison inviting you to join me Fridays at 6 p.m. as we delve into the hottest news stories of the week on the Michael Harrison Wrap, right here on KSCO News Talk 1080 AM, 95.7 FM, 104.1 FM, and 107.9 FM. What do you say we kick off the weekend together, you, me, and the Michael Harrison Wrap, Friday evenings at 6. And start your days off right with Rosemary Chalmers and Alex Schaefer weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. right here on KSCO News Talk 1080.
Welcome back to China Uber Alice. We're almost at the end of our first hour. I want to remind folks about our website, ChinaUberAlice.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, review past programs and literature, news articles and whatnot about our topics, and we invite you to visit that. It's really quite a... Jonty's done a really good job on that. That's ChinaUberAlice.com. And, you know, I've often talked about Amy and about her stories. And, you know, when we first heard Amy's story to begin our program today, I wondered how it was going to fit in with what we were talking about. Lo and behold, it's the perfect, once again, intro to our topic. Because what Amy has experienced firsthand has been studied by somebody from,
Canada,
Oxford.
Yeah.
I mean, This is a fascinating bit of information from our guest today, Gaylen Gord. Amy, you continue to amaze me because your firsthand knowledge of what had happened during the communist revolution in China is still taking place.
Yes, never change.
Well, let's hope it'll change. Maybe our programs like ours will help to change it. I hope so. I
think the first thing we need to do is to really have the corporations, the big techs here in the United States to stop collaboration with the Chinese Communist regime.
Yeah, absolutely.
And support this labor camp.
Hey, we're going to talk to some of our audience members in the second half hour. Give us a call at 479-1080, 479-1080. Amy, Hao, Nansu, and myself, Bill Graff, will be back for the second hour of China Uber Alice on AM 1080 KSCO in just 5 minutes.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters. President Biden is proposing immigration legislation that would give a path to citizenship to anyone in the United States before January 1st, 2021. An estimated 11 million people.
The bill, if passed, will allow young immigrants known as dreamers, as well as farm workers and other migrants, to immediately be eligible to work legally and then to gain citizenship in the U.S. within 3 years. Undocumented immigrants could be eligible for a green card within 5 years and citizenship in 8. President Biden's more welcoming approach is likely to stimulate more waves of asylum seekers attempting to reach the United States. On the eve of his inauguration, thousands of Hondurans were stopped in Guatemala by security forces as they attempted to march northwards to the U.S.
BBC correspondent Candace Piet reporting. President Biden is launching a COVID-19 strategy to aggressively reduce infections and increase vaccinations. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
We're in a national emergency. It's time we treat it like one.
Promising a comprehensive action plan, the president said his administration is focused on ramping up efforts to deal with the coronavirus pandemic.
Help is on the way.
He signed 10 executive orders to increase vaccinations and testing, lay the groundwork for reopening schools and businesses, and immediately increase the use of masks, including a requirement that Americans mask up for travel. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Amazon won't be forced to restore web service to Parler after a federal judge ruled Thursday against a plea to reinstate the fast-growing social media app favored by many conservatives. U.S. District Judge Barbara Rothstein in Seattle said she wasn't dismissing Parler's substantive underlying claims against Amazon, but said it felt short in demonstrating the need for an injunction forcing it back online. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 12 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The coronavirus has changed our lives, and while trying to stay healthy, people are finding themselves working and shopping from home. Sometimes change offers opportunity, and this might be the perfect time to start your own home business. When you decide to work with Longevity as a distributor, you'll get wholesale pricing, training materials, and your own website, which Longevity will maintain and update so that you can work from home. Here's what you should expect. Pay the distributor fee online and get on auto ship for a Healthy Start pack. You'll get it delivered to your house every month with free shipping. When you do this, you'll be automatically qualified to make up to 30% commission on everything sold on your website. But you must maintain your auto ship to qualify, and these must be new customers. The next thing you'll need is consistent training and learning about the products and referring people to that shiny new website. Now you can work from home and they can shop from home. To learn more, log on to kseohealth.com or call 831-218-5726. That's 831-218-5726 or kseohealth.com.
Here's the townhall.com business brief.
Stocks drifted to a mixed close on Wall Street as the earnings reporting season for U.S. companies ramped into higher gear. The S&P 500 edged up just 1 point, enough to mark another record high. The Dow and other markets fell, as did most stocks. Insurer Travelers jumped after reporting a stronger-than-expected profit, as most companies have been doing so far the earnings reporting season. United Airlines fell after reporting a worse loss than expected. Economic reports generally were mixed. The Dow dropped a dozen points today to close at 31,176. The Nasdaq gained 73 to 13,530. The S&P 500 up 1 to 3,853. New York oil down 23 cents to $53.01 a barrel. With business, I'm John Scott.
News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. The UK is refusing to give diplomatic status to the European Union's ambassador in the latest story surrounding the Brexit saga.
The Foreign Office wants to treat the EU delegation as an international organisation with fewer rights and protections for its diplomats. This is unprecedented. Every other EU ambassador around the world has full diplomatic status. In a letter seen by the BBC, the EU Foreign Affairs Chief, Josep Borrell, told the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, of his serious concerns. One EU source feared hostile countries might follow Britain's lead. A European Commission spokesman said the UK delegation should be granted its proper status without delay. A Foreign Office spokesman said discussions were ongoing.
BBC correspondent James Landale reporting. The British government has been criticized for downgrading the status, with some ex-Foreign Service officers calling the decision petty and saying it could set a bad precedent. More at townhall.com.
KSCO News Talk time is 3:05. I'm Sam Quinton with your King of the Hill traffic and weather. Let's get started with the surface streets in Santa Cruz. How about 1115 Bromer Street? Traffic collision reported there. Interesting little tidbit. It's a Toyota versus a tree, and there's a line here that says the responsible party smells like alcohol. Uh-oh. Units are on the scene to take care of that. Elsewhere, Highway 9 is clear. Highway 17 up and over the summit, that is accident-free. Moving at the limit, let's take a look at Highway 1 from the Fishhook down to Monterey. Accident-free and moving at the limit. 129, 152, they are clear. Highway 101 southbound between Coyote and Madrone. You're going to find some slow and go there. Possible delays could be anywhere between 8 to 10 minutes to get through that area. Your Central Coast forecast for the rest of this afternoon, mostly sunny skies, looking for a high of 64 degrees, west winds around 10 miles per hour. Tonight, patchy fog, overnight lows 42 expected. Friday, 40% chance of showers, looking for a high of only 57 degrees. Right now, outside the KSCO studios, it is 64 degrees. Now we return to the second hour of China Uber Alice on KSCO.
Hour number 2 of today's China Uber Alice program. I'm Bill Graff, along with Amy Howe and Nan Su, and fascinating first hour. Every once in a while, we have Egg Foo Young on our face.
Yeah, so I want to make apology right now. Actually, our guest today was not Gaylen Gore. Her name was Gaylen Ford.
Typographical error.
Yeah. Well, it's not. Well, I thought, in the whole program, I was thinking, why both of you calling her Gaylen, and then I just went back to check email. It was my email yesterday. It was that when I sent the email, I mistyped. I typed Gaylen Gore. No, that's not correct. Gaylen Ford. That's her name. I'm sure in the future we're gonna have her come back. She's really good in study of all these genocide issues taking place.
She has a master's degree in international human rights law from Oxford University. She was the former foreign policy advisor to the Canadian Foreign Ministry. She makes documentaries, films. She is a superstar on this topic. And the least we could do is get her name right.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's okay. We'll get it squared away for the next visit. We want to thank her again for an entire, 45 minutes of just great information. And once again, tying Amy Howe's story perfectly to the topic at hand today. By the way, if you'd like to join us and talk to us about what is still happening in China and in other parts of the world, I must add, genocide is still a real thing. And it's horrible that in the year 2021 this is still taking place. But if you want to talk to us, 479-1080 is the number to call on China Uber Alice today. I am just horrified, actually, is the word. That this sort of thing happens, and in the case of China, in some provinces, seems to be pretty insidious.
Yeah, and it all boiled down to religious freedom, of course. The Chinese government, it's the one it set up the standard in China. But it's not setting up the standard. Chinese Communist Party is the standard for what's right, what's wrong, what's good, and what's bad in China. But so it ended up nobody can challenge them. I mean, when was the last time you heard the Chinese government admit they did something wrong? Never. Because they are the God, they are everything. So I remember I read a book. It was written by one of the Catholic member who flee out of China. He ended up 4 years in jail because he really practiced Catholicism in China, and after he flee out of China, he wrote a book, and the name of the book, it's The Color of God, It's Red. Mm-hmm. It's really bad. And going back to Amy's story, Amy said that how basically a part of her story, she told us how the Chinese Communist regime tried to change the Catholic Church in China, which is true that the bishops and all the priests in Catholic Church in China are not appointed by Vatican, but it was they all appointed by the Chinese Communist regime. I remember a story I read after the Cultural Revolution. Was one of the priests. He was kidnapped by the Red Guards during the Cultural Revolution. So the Red Guards really beaten this priest. When they tried to torture him. Now, eventually, this priest actually say, "Stop beating me." And he yelled, and he said, "I'm not a Communist Party member." So he said, I'm sent by the Central Communist Committee, and I got a job here to do. I'm undercover.
Yeah.
And that was one of the stories after the Cultural Revolution. Inside China, people talk about this quite openly, and because a Catholic Church was very much destroyed, so they're talking about. So they really talk about this openly. So this is the kind of story will shock you.
Yeah. Boy, that's the truth. It will shock you badly. Let's take a phone call. Downtown Al has called in. Let's put Al on the air. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. Wonderful show, and it was a great guest you had from Canada. I'm wondering how much personal risk is for you guys. Like, could you and Amy actually go back to China, or would you be at risk of imprisonment?
The last time I went back to China, that was 2000, and there was 2000. I was kicked out of China after arrested for a day. Because I was in China, I was criticized the Chinese government for the persecution of Falun Gong, and I was arrested for a day, and then they kicked me out right away. They canceled my visa. So I was never being able to go back to China ever since, and including back in 2007, my dad passed away in China and wasn't even able to get a visa to go back to China to his funeral. I've been nonstop here in the United States, in the society here, to raise the awareness of the human rights violations in China. I often getting comments when I talk to different groups concerning my safety. But hey, I'm a survivor, so I have to keep going.
Well, I salute you for that, and the same with Amy, because, and who knows, maybe even you, Bill, and Michael Swirling.
Well, I certainly hope not, but I don't like I've said many times on this program, I don't have the same experience that both Nan and Amy have. I don't know what I would do if I was if I went to some other country for a while and then tried to come back and they canceled my visa to come back to the country I was born in. It just, wow. I can't even imagine that.
So, another question I have is there's so many powerful entities arrayed against interfering with the Chinese, Western government, U.S. specifically, trade. And I'm wondering how much of that has to do with opposition to Donald Trump as a disruptor. When you think about, Tim Cook of Apple Computers, or Jack Dorsey of Twitter, or Facebook, or Cisco, or any of these companies that do massive amounts of business, and just about any other manufacturing business, he was meddling with their game to a certain extent by criticizing China, and I think there was a huge amount of money that came out of Wall Street and certain businesses to oppose him. It wasn't in direct opposition in terms of criticizing his policies on trade with China, but in a roundabout way criticizing for anything else to undermine his presidency as much as possible because because of
the monetary aspect of it.
Yeah, makes so much money. And I mean, anybody who goes into, Home Depot or Walmart or any other place will see, or Amazon, that's another one, Jeff Bezos. Just about everything that's sold nowadays comes out of communist China. And we really should use the word communist more often.
You're absolutely correct, and I think there's a tremendous business interest in the market in China, and that's why it's so much inconvenient truth for us to tell the world that what Chinese Communist regime it's been doing.
Well, look, Amy's stories alone. Just Amy's stories. We begin each program with one of Amy's stories, and every single week I'm blown away by what she says. And Amy has an opinion about how this whole thing is. Amy thinks that we have. Well, Amy, you explain it.
Well, we talk about the truth, right? We wanted to basically we think this program we're doing now is telling the truth.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Well, I definitely believe you're telling the truth. My only concern sometimes is how much of the youth are you reaching? How much of the general population? I mean, I could see the stories that Amy tells would be ideal for, a comic book, a graphic novel type of thing. That would, no, I'm serious. I wouldn't laugh at that. These stories need to get out. And they need to get out with the youth in a lot of ways.
Look at how Al, you're completely right. Look at how popular Marvel Comics is, and they're talking about they're talking about made up stuff. If you had a comic book or a graphic novel that talked about real stories of persecution, and I mean, it would sell. I hate to say it, Amy, but it's some of your stories are pretty, horrific, but they would sell in a graphic novel.
Yeah, they definitely would. Like that story, A Little Blue. I
don't think so.
Oh, yes, I think
the young generation, because I even try to tell my family members and the young people, second generation, they even living in China when they're a kid, like 5-6 years old, never educated there, educated here. I mean, in the United States or Canada, they're not interested at all.
Well,
maybe
I don't know what to say.
Maybe it needs to be presented by a younger person who kind of understands the idea of graphic novels. Are you familiar with the series called Mouse, M-A-U-S? It basically has little mice, squeak squeak rodents.
Uh-huh.
But they're actually telling what went on in Nazi Germany in a graphic novel form, and it was extremely popular, had a big following, and I think the same thing could be done with your stories.
Well, we have a great example. Remember the little girl who lived in the attic during Nazi Germany. Remember that whole story? Remember Anne Frank became famous.
Anne Frank.
Yes. Well, we could have the Amy Howe diaries.
Anyway, I think you're doing a wonderful job, and what I would like to hear in the future, if there's any protest planned in like the Bay Area, that people such as myself who are interested in this could maybe go there and hold signs. If there was a protest, I don't care if it's an NBA meeting or an NBA game or Apple Computers or Cisco or whatever, it's important to get the word out and shame these people for doing
absolutely
not just business with the Chinese people there, but business with the communist Chinese government that's actively suppressing people. Yeah. That's what's really, really bad.
Yeah, it is horrific. Al, we appreciate the call. Thank you so much.
Great show, and I hope you're getting coverage, or this should be syndicated or something. I mean, you guys do awesome work.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all three.
Thank you, Al.
One of the things that really struck me when we were talking to Gaylen in the last hour was the fact that there are U.S. companies who are making a profit out of helping the Chinese government persecute people.
Yeah.
Well, sadly, that's what has been happened. Again, that's all boiled down to religious freedom. And the Chinese government, it's always try to twist the things, like what Gaylen told us. They are really try to persecute the Uyghurs' religion.
Yeah.
But while they twisted it, it says they are the separationists. They are the ones. They are the terrorist group, right?
Yeah, they're terrorists. They are traitors. They are undermining the Communist Party. So that's a propaganda all the time.
Yeah, just think about Dalai Lama.
Yeah, or Dalai Lama is a great example, but also Amy was talking in a previous program about the Catholic Church and how the Catholic Church, even though it still exists in China, is pretty much run by the Communist Party, and it's not really affiliated with the Pope.
That's right. That's right. None of their priests were appointed by Vatican, but it was appointed by the Communist regime. They make sure all these priests to interpret the Bible in the way the Communist regime like.
Yeah,
right?
It's just
exactly.
It's just amazing to me,
Yeah, and another story.
People arrested whole their life. They're fighting, but most of it, about 30 years and 20 years, some of them survived. It didn't die in the jail. Some are dying in the jail, some are executed or whatever. But it's just like take a couple of generations and to fight. And until now, still same. So I don't know what to say.
Yeah, it's amazing. Hey, we have several calls of folks that want to talk to us about this topic. Let's go first to Rory, who's calling from Watsonville. Rory, you're on with Amy and Nan and me.
Yes, thank you for having me. Hey, Billy, earlier on you said you couldn't imagine what it would be like for American not to be able to go to a church service or go to a funeral.
Yeah.
Right? You mentioned that earlier. But that's exactly what's happening in many states that are doing these lockdowns. They're not allowing churches to meet, and basically there are no funerals in those states. So
I understand completely what you're saying, Rory. I was speaking in like a permanent context, not a COVID context.
Right. But this is a Marxist right.
Can I say something? We don't have to go too far. San Francisco, the Washington Square, that church, they punished $10,000 because they allow the people, just family members, to have a wedding.
Really?
Yeah, during COVID, yeah.
Yeah, like right now even, some churches are being fined. I hope they take them to court. The other thing is, can you two speak to the notorious suicide nets that some companies had to put up in some American factories in China? And then I'll take my answer on the air. Thank you, guys. Love the show.
Thanks for calling, Rory.
Thank you, Rory.
Well, I know something about this. I did some research for a previous China Uber Alice program, and the company that makes the iPhone had to put up suicide nets for the top stories of the building.
Oh, that's a Foxton.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually a factory owned by a Taiwanese businessman, and he actually transferred a lot of his company to the operation to the United States now. Now, see, here is the issue, right? The Chinese communist regime, in the early times after they opened up, they really want the foreign investment. So in the way, they totally ignore the workers' right. So they purposely just make it an issue not addressed. So all the way until the safety net that the Foxton until that case was become awareness to the international society. Then now the Chinese government facing one side, it's they either keep doing that, but continuously receive criticism from the Western world, which put them in the spot, endanger all the incoming, continual coming in foreign investment, or they have to address it. So the way the Chinese communist regime to address this is they go to establish the union in all these foreign companies. That's operation. They have operation in China. But then what they do is they put all this labor union controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. So
pointless.
It's pointless, but however, they in the way they got their hands using this as an opportunity. They got their hands in the control of these foreign corporations. So that's what they are doing. It's a very complicated operation over there. They do it in each and every way to. It's like a left or right. They always take advantage of the circumstance.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's illustrated on just about every one of Amy's stories.
Yes.
We have several people who want to talk to us this afternoon. Let's take our person who's been hanging on the line the longest. That would be line 2 and Homeless Joe. You're on KSCO.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can indeed.
Okay, I just had a question. How do we know that this is just not propaganda and this is really happening? Maybe this is just a wedge put a wedge between our two countries. Thank you, and I'll take my answer off the air.
Well, that's a very good question, actually. But I think the answer is also a pretty good answer. We have not just Amy Howe's stories, not just your stories, but thousands of other people who have escaped communist China with the same exact story.
Yes, two of my friends actually, we grew up in the same neighborhood. They belong to the same family. They are the sisters of each other, and their younger brother was my classmate. Now, both of them died during the persecution of Falun Gong. Both of them practiced Falun Gong. Both went to jail and labor camp many times. In and out of labor camp. Both of them eventually died in the first 10 years of this century. I knew how difficult they are, how much they experienced. I remember the younger sister of the two. She was jailed. I think it's 2002 or 2003, and she was jailed 4 years. And she got out, and she called me, and I asked her, how are you doing? And you know what? Her answer make my heart broken. She said, I haven't seen my son for 4 years.
Wow.
He grew up.
Wow.
He grew up. That was the first thing I remember. She told me that really make my heart broken.
Yeah, and I can see it in your face. Folks, this is a real thing that's happening. Whether you believe or not, do some research. Look it up. I did. I was blown away at how many thousand people have the same exact story, and every story is horrible. But it took hearing it firsthand from Amy to make me look it up. And anyway, Amy, do you have anything to say about people who don't believe?
Well, what can I say? It's the ear of the beholder, And also, I think will take a little while. You have to use your mind to think about it, and also you have to have some kind of information. That's what I'm talking about right now. You don't get the real information, so you're wondering is it true or not. Even I am kind of wondering something true or not, because before we always trust the news and trust the media, especially in Western media. Right? We just, in China, just listen to BBC, listen to Voice of America. I think they tell the truth.
Yeah.
And definitely not the communists. But now I don't know who you believe.
Which is a great lead-in to non-Sue, who works for the Epoch Times, and he's dedicated his life to telling the truth.
Yeah, well, think about the history. I mean, one of the things, I don't blame the gentleman who just called, and because like Gaylen said, the Chinese government has been very effective to twist the story. Now, they label everything, either you're a separationist or you're a terrorist. But think about this. Think about the history. The Chinese government has been saying that Dalai Lama was a separationist, right?
Yes.
But think about this. Before Dalai Lama, he's the 14th Dalai Lama, right? Every generation you have one Dalai Lama, right? He's not the first one. He's the 14th one. Now, before him, there was 13 Dalai Lama in China. None of them left China. But once the communists took over control of China and the Dalai Lama left China, it's really for the religious liberty. That's the reason. But then once he left China, the Chinese communist regime labeled him as a separationist.
Yeah.
What they want is a religious right, not a sovereignty right. But it was twisted by the communist regime. It became, they want to be their own country.
What'd you say, Amy?
I think is that then worst thing is that they make another one. The one was listening to them. They made the one. So they think that was no good, so I have a mine. That's what I'm talking about. That's the Communist Party always do it,
Yeah.
So to the religion, the church is still there, temple is still there, but it all belongs to communists.
All right, let's continue to take some calls. We have, Wayne in Santa Cruz is on line 3. If I push the right button, Wayne should be on the radio. Hello, Wayne.
Hi, how do you do?
Great.
So in 87, I went to China with my wife on a tour with a Catholic group. And at that time, we were told, religion has been liberalized in China. So going over there, we went with a lady who was in China, from Fresno, who had a Chinese market, and she grew up in China. She wanted to go back to her old church. So we all went. There's about 35, 40 of us. But as soon as you get off the plane over there, you get a government guide. And then every place you go, you get a local guide. And so they're watching you like a hawk. And so when we went, a Catholic priest went with us, and he was scared to death that if he was caught saying Mass for our small group, he would be taken from us. So we had to be very secretive. And to that guy who said he couldn't believe, he thinks that this is made up. Well, one of the things that got in my head all these years, we went into this one church, and they want to control exactly where you go, what church you go to visit and everything. So anyway, I saw this lady in the side pew, and she was praying. And our guides were not around, so I thought, okay, I'm going to go over there and give her something. So I had one of these little 10 or 25-cent rosaries. And so I went over to her, and I just handed it to her and walked away. I didn't want to get her in trouble with me or whatever. And then 5 minutes later, I felt a tug on my arm. And I turn around, and I'm looking down at this little old Chinese lady, and I see her face right now as I talking to you. And you would think I gave her $1 million. I was looking at so much gratitude and thankfulness in her eyes and everything, and I gave her a 25-cent plastic rosary. So that kind of gives you how they're, they're controlled in their...
What? Well, we just lost, I don't know what happened. Yeah. We just lost his call. Okay, sorry about that. But he was talking about giving a parishioner a rosary, and you think it was a gold bar. Amazing, amazing. Amy, religious persecution, I think, is maybe one of the worst crimes ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's because they can take away your possession, something tangible. But this is in your mind, what you believe, what you face, and they can't take it away. So they just coming in and just make it their own. That I hate the most of things. I hate the CCP. I hate the communists. They want the people to betray each other.
Yeah.
You just report somebody in.
Yeah, it's We in when I was a kid, we used to call you'd rat on somebody. You know, you rat them out. You know, I think for the most part, I think that's one of the more insidious parts of what the communist Chinese do. They pit their own citizens against each other.
Oh, they're very good at doing this.
Very good. They're really good about it. Or your family, you know, you're the one you love, you trust. So breaking down. So.
Yeah. All right, let's talk to Bill in Santa Cruz. Bill, you're on KSCO. Thanks for waiting.
Hi. I just wanted to put out a little more information. Al's suggestion of a graphic novel was really great. But in the meantime, you can see a 1 hour 30 or 1 hour 20-minute documentary that is fantastic. On YouTube, it's free. I'm not sure you can trust YouTube to keep it there. You can also look for it on BitChute or Rumble. But the title of it, the search term is Death by China. And this documentary was made in 2012, so it's before Trump existed politically. It's in the middle of Obama's 8 years, and it condemns both Democrats and Republicans equally because they're all bought and paid for. Not all in both parties, but the controlling interests in both parties are bought and paid for by China and the corporations and all of it. And it goes into it. And I just bought a pair of earphones for $10 on Amazon, and it's made in China. So they're going to destroy us economically, and then they'll destroy us militarily. They will reach a point where our politicians, like Mitch McConnell, will have to okay it with Beijing before they introduce a policy.
Wow, let's hope that's not true.
I definitely hope that's not going to happen.
Death by China.
Yes, that's by the
business connection with Mitch McConnell and the what I call Elaine Chao. They have so much business connection with China, you know. And they talk about the movie by Peter Navarro.
Yes, Navarro.
It's made based on the book.
He's the one also that 28 people. One of us, he was there in China banned them to go to China or do any business there.
Yes, he was one of the 28 names that's sanctioned by the Chinese Communist regime the last day of the administration. The Chinese Beijing's regime actually issued a statement which stated over the past few years, quote, over the past few years, some anti-China politicians in the United States, out of their selfish political interests and prejudice and hatred against China and showing no regards for the interests of the Chinese and American people, blah, 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 blah. And then they are banned all these people, including Alex Azar. And they Health and Human Service. You know why they put his name on as a part of the list?
Because of the whole COVID-19 thing.
Because he visited Taiwan.
Oh, really?
Because he visited Taiwan. So that's how he got his name on the sanctioned list. Thank you for calling.
Thank you, Bill, for calling.
Okay, Peter Navarro. And for Homeless Joe, if he really is homeless, which I doubt, but if he really is homeless, he should watch this and he may find out why he's homeless.
All right. Thank you for the call.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's move on to Alex in Santa Cruz. Alex has been waiting for a while. Thank you for holding.
Oh, thank you guys for the show. It's really interesting. I wanted to touch on something Amy brought up about the Dalai Lama.
Go ahead.
I'm not quite sure. I read a book a while ago. It was about the Dalai Lama having to leave China and move into India. And they were talking about the way their system is set up. They have two monks. So they have the Dalai Lama and then they have a monk under him who decides who the next reincarnation of the Dalai Lama is going to be. And from my understanding was that when they appointed the Chompen Lama, the next person to decide who the next Dalai Lama is going to be, the Chinese government kidnapped him as a child and then appointed their own.
Yeah.
So when this Dalai Lama dies, the 14th Dalai Lama, the 15th Dalai Lama will be picked by the Chinese government. So just a little bit details on the whole situation. And I think we have to remember, too, that the Chinese government, the communist government, and the Chinese people, there's two different things.
That's it. First of all, I want to say this. You got a story a little bit off. The next Dalai Lama will not be there until he passes away. So, but it is true that the Chinese government, it's always intended to find their own Dalai Lama. So, based on the Tibetan culture, say when one Dalai Lama passed away, so based on the way he lay down from the direction of his head, they're following that direction to find the youngest person that's there, and then what they do is they will take some of the things that owned by the last Dalai Lama and then mix with a bunch of other things, right? They will let this young guy pick. They will first of all find a few guys they believe they probably will be the reincarnation of Dalai Lama, and then they will have them pick. The ones pick up the right thing will be. Well, yeah, there's a method to how they pick it, and it's a generations old way. Yeah, so
it's
now
chosen by a specific monk called the Chompen Lama. And
right.
That person was kidnapped by the Chinese government as a young child. And then a new Chompen Lama was appointed by the Chinese government. So when the Dalai Lama passes away and the predecessor or the reincarnation, it'll be picked by somebody who isn't the real Chompen Lama. It's the new appointed by the Chinese government Chompen Lama.
Yes, that part is true. And actually, the Chinese government, it was funny. They actually passed a law which says the next Dalai Lama can only be picked inside China, and then while the 14th Dalai Lama actually made a statement, he said there will be no Dalai Lama after him.
It was already out, yeah.
Alex, thank you for the call.
Well,
Go ahead, Amy.
No, I just saying is basically communists, they can change everything. I'm talking about culture, they're changing everything, changing history, changing religion, whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Once they have the power, they're changing everything.
We'll move on the call back to Ron and Carmel. Ron, you're on KSCO.
Well, hi. I just wanted to bring up American thought leaders from the Epoch Times. Last weekend I saw an interview with Benedict Rogers, and the title of the program is 83 Global Brands Tied to Forced Labor in China. And what they discussed are basically exactly what you're talking about, the problems that are occurring in China, the slavery issues, and they bring it akin to the Holocaust. I did some research on the weekend, and I did read about one individual. There was one worker who wound up jumping off a building recently. She jumped off the building and committed suicide. And there was another worker who set himself on fire, and I don't know if he survived his burns, supposedly, but I don't know if you've got anything to comment about that as well.
Ron, we appreciate the questions, and we'll see. Do you know any more about that?
Actually, I did not. I have not read that specific story, but the kind of sad story taking place in China just because the workers are not being treated in the right way, and that's been a long time. There's a lot of those stories coming out, and actually the reason that we have been losing American job to China, it's just because we have never really fight hard enough for the workers' rights in China. We don't fight for their workers' right, and that becomes the reason that they are labor
taken advantage of.
Yeah, their labor cost is so cheap, and then we lose American jobs.
Yeah,
that's unfortunately that's the kind of how things lay out.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the call, Ron. Let's move on to I think it's Sean, but I'm not positive about that. Sean, I'm not sure about...
It'd be Shane.
Shane? Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Shane in Australia?
Yeah, g'day, gentlemen. Love your program.
Oh, thank you. Are you really in Australia?
Yeah, way down south, mate. Not that far from Antarctica.
My God, your phone call sounds better than my cell phone.
Well, you know, with a string with a can, mate, we've actually got rid of them now. It was very hard for a while there. But look, I'd just like to remind you, Yanks, 80 years ago, the Chinese and Australians and the Allies, you blokes, we were fighting for our lives, and we were actually fighting together, and we were allies. And then only a couple of years later, we were fighting in Korea, and we were fighting against each other. So there's some strange parts of history there, and I always think if you ever think of having a fight with China, go into your home and look at all the things that were made in China. And I think it was 2017 when, you know, like, and I just want to remark on this too before I maybe cut out, but basically the Chinese have been warring for, you know, thousands and thousands of years, you know, as we know through the different history of their dynasties and their Mongol invasions and stuff. But I think the general Chinese person I talk to within Australia, because we've got a couple of 100,000 through the migration programs here, they're very beautiful people. There's no problems, you know, there's no problems. But in 2017, the people who control our government exported huge amounts of resources to China. 1 billion and 80 million tonnes of coal just went to China alone. Gas, there was a whole huge amounts of resources that went out of this country and have been feeding the Chinese economy for, well, I'd say about 30 years now. And they've become rich. Australia now is in over $1 trillion debt and huge amounts of problems with our ecology and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not sure who's made the money and I'm not sure who's in control of the countries. But I would say the general person, the Chinese man and me, we'd get along and we'd probably share our food and we'd probably have no problems at all. But there seems to be a process of human evolution that gets people up top and just totally ruin it. And I'm not sure if they're psychopaths, because I was told a long time ago a psychopath's got an advantage over a decent person, but that seems to be the evolution of the human species in general right now.
Yeah, that's a great observation, that the haves seem to get more and the have-nots seem to get less, and it seems to continue along that process when greed is part of the equation.
Well, I just can't believe in this day and age the human race are still wanting to fight each other. Like, we're on the verge of a Chinese-American allied war, and I just think, my God, you know, come on. I don't know. We just got to pray because it's out of our control in a sense. But still, this year or last year, we still spend more on military spending as the Homo sapiens go than stuff that would actually enlighten us and make us evolve into a unified human race that could actually start addressing the huge ecological problems we've got. But that doesn't seem to be the species track, is it?
No, and that's a great observation. Thank you, by the way, for the call, and we appreciate you listening to our program all the way from down under.
Lest we forget, huh?
Yeah. Take care. Wow, that's...
Australia.
Very good observation.
War with China. They have the energy source war in China for last month was very severe, you know.
Yeah.
It actually caused, it's really
amazing.
But basically China, I visited Australia last year, you know, not last year, 2 years ago. And then I tell you, they also, China infiltrated everything. Everywhere. Australia and New Zealand. Unbelievable. I just can't believe it.
Yeah, it is amazing, isn't it? They have reached out to countries all over the planet.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's take a call from Dick, who's calling from Santa Cruz. Hello, Dick.
Hey, Billy. You were talking about the Dalai Lama being replaced, and the Chinese were replacing or I guess they kidnapped his predecessor, or
no, his
that was going to
the way they picked the Dalai Lama is there is a monk who assembles the information.
They took a kid.
Yeah.
So they took a kid.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah. Say it's.
So why are they so afraid of Tibet, and why haven't they taken over Tibet?
Very good question. That's a good question.
Let me make a quick comment first. I just want to comment that, well, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tibetan Buddhism, which is, there's mostly monks and lamas, over there in Tibet, and it's still, they haven't touched it. So, and they're infiltrating their religion, and so just like the Nazis, the Chinese are very curious about the Tibetan Buddhist religion. For instance, have you heard about the body of light? Amy,
no.
Body of light?
Yeah.
Rainbow body? Anyway, yeah. And in Tibetan practices, which are really kind of secretive, at
the end of the end of the months they will become light to just go away. Is
right?
That, okay.
Right.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, it's pretty much been documented. It's not something that Westerners are that aware of or could care about, because it's so unbelievable where they either die, unintentionally, or when they do die, it takes about 7 days, just like Jesus Christ, they just disappear. So there's a lot of strong, powerful 3,000-year-old mysticism and occult kind of stuff. They probably, I'm sure the Chinese look at it as an occult. So, in any case, it's not a dark science. It's not, it's the furthest thing from it. But why haven't they taken over Tibet?
That's a question I've often wondered myself.
Wait, what do you mean by they have?
Taken by who?
Well, the Chinese government is so big and so strong and so powerful. Why do they allow Tibet to still exist as a country? Why don't they just take it over?
So now Tibet is a province of China, right?
The province of China always thinks, but they call the peace resolution for that. They not use the military to get that.
Yeah, there was.
So it's still later than 1949, 1950s.
Yeah, in the 50s. So they are Chinese government established 5 autonomous regions in China. They are the 5 regions. It's 5 provisional
sort of like
regions.
states.
Yeah, it's like a province.
Okay.
In China, they call it province. So there's 5 of them.
They don't understand because Tibet, but part of India, they saw that this whole area called Tibet. Actually, they have the Chinese Tibet and the Indian Tibet in separate countries.
Is that what you're saying? This gentleman.
Dick.
Dick, is that what you're talking about?
I guess I'm misinformed. Okay, it's a province, but it sounds like it's an autonomous thing where they're more or less leaving the Tibetans alone. I don't know if.
Okay.
What?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that the communist government's not leaving anybody alone.
That's right. So what they established in 1949, it was called autonomous region, Tibetan. It's like a provincial level administrative district. But however, it's not autonomous. There's no autonomy at all, and that's why Dalai Lama left, because he didn't have any. He felt that his religious liberty was taken away by the Chinese communist regime.
But he's been back for a while.
No, he went to. He has been ever since 1959. He has been living in India.
To India, yeah.
He's in the Indian.
Okay. Yes.
Actually, I don't know you ever read his own biography and talking about why he's leaving. Actually, he wanted to go to England. He wanted to go to America. Nobody accepted him. India is the only place. You can read about it. It's all true.
Hey, Dick, I'm running out of time.
Okay,
call us next week, and we'll see if we can clear up some of this. I'll do some research, and we'll see if we can find out more about Tibet, okay?
Okay, bye.
Thanks for calling. We're almost out of time. Amy, if you'll hang on, I'm going to take our last break, and we'll be back to finish the program in just a moment on China, Uber, Alice. User-Friendly Computing is Santa Cruz County's top-rated IT service and solutions provider since 1993. Here's why. Service and repair. Whether it's hardware or software, servers or a workstation, we'll fix it or find you a new one. Managed services. Optimize and protect your infrastructure with 24/7, 365 proactive monitoring. Cloud solutions. Cloud IT is the future of small and medium business technology management. Website design. Engage customers and grow your business with tools to update your own content. Backup and recovery. Ensure business continuity with a comprehensive backup and disaster recovery plan. And finally, security and compliance. Advanced security systems help protect your data and keep your business up and running. There's only one place to go for all your computer and IT solutions, User-Friendly Computing, 505 River Street in Santa Cruz. Give Peter and his friendly staff a call at 831-423-9653. And be sure to tell them you heard about it on KSCO.
People do not like going to the dentist unless they're going to this dentist. Hello, folks. Michael Olson here with Dr. Guy Peabody. Well, doctor, you work with a lot of people who haven't been to the dentist for a long, long time. There's got to be a little fear there when they show up in your office.
Yeah, it's funny you ask that. People are worried when they first come to see us that they haven't been to the dentist in a long time because they're afraid they're going to get berated. And I chuckle at that because we're here to help people. We assure them that we have today and the future, and we're just going to take good care of them, and everything's going to be fine. The most important thing we can do for them is listen to them. We want to find out what their concerns are. We want to find out who they are as people. We want to know if they're apprehensive about dental care or not. We want to know what their goals are. My job is to mainly find out how I can make them happy, and I can't do that unless I know what's going on inside.
Call Dr. Guy Peabody for a consultation today and wake up to a beautiful smile tomorrow. 831-457-0343 or visit drpeabody.com.
Wow, we've had such a great show today on China Uber Alice. Just a reminder, if you want to find out more about our program, ChinaUberAlice.com is the website. We have a newsletter you can sign up for and a whole bunch of information all in one place. Jonty, our web guy, has put together quite a bit of information on that.
Yes, Jonty has done a wonderful job.
I look forward, Amy, to your story next week.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
All right, and we'll the stuff in the news kind of propels our program a little bit. There's sometimes like today. Mr. Pompeo and several other people were denounced by the Chinese government, and so we've been talking about that. We've been talking about persecution of various individuals, and it's kind of the way it goes. We want to thank all of you for calling in, and remember our program is from 2 to 4 every Thursday here on KSCO in Santa Cruz. We appreciate you being with us, Amy and Nan. I look forward to our visit next week.
And you guys, thank you for listening to our program, and you have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
All right, Amy, we'll talk to you soon. This is KSCO Santa Cruz, KOMY, La Selva Beach, Watsonville. Coming up, Flight 1080 for a Thursday. Keep it right here.